Hi and welcome. I'll be doing a movie review, facts, and cast. Cast was on before this video, so this video is not the actual movie, but I'll be telling you what happened in the movie, so you know if to see the movie, if you've not seen it, or just to know what the movie is about in case you want to see the movie. I'm going to try to be quick and brief. I'm not the best storyteller, but I'll try to get you know all the details of the movie. I try not to leave anything important out. Try to get the important parts and make you enjoy it. So stay tuned. Hi and welcome. So, like I said, a movie review and facts. So, this is the movie we will be reviewing. It's Halloween Ends. This is Halloween's Ends full movie review and facts. In this video, we're going to be talking about this movie, Halloween Ends. We'll be talking about this movie, talking about the cast, our lead actress, lead actor. We'll be reviewing the movie in general, and there will be spoilers too. So if you don't want spoilers, then maybe you don't want to watch this. But there will be spoilers, and they'll tell you about the movie, the fast release date, when was it released, which um distribution company release date, all these stuff. We are going to be talking about all this in this video. So yeah, stay tuned. Okay, so this movie, Halloween End, Halloween End was released October 14th, 2022. October 14, 2022, and the countries of origin of this movie is the United States and the United Kingdom. So yeah, the language used in the movie is English. Most times there are movies that are Spanish, Italian, um different French, there are Korean, there are lots. Most times movies are most times movies have different languages, but this movie is English. It's an English movie. Okay, so it's an English movie. So with that, let's we then move into the reviews. But before we get into the review, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the storyline, what the story is telling us, what the story is all about. So this story is this storyline. I'll be reading it out from 4 years after the events of Halloween case. Laurie is living with her granddaughter Allison and is finishing writing her memoir. Michael Meyer hasn't been seen since Laurie, after allowing the specter of Michael to determine and drive her reality for decades, has decided to liberate herself from fear and rage and embrace life. When a young man, Corey, is accused of a boy, killing a boy, he was babysitting. It ignites a cascade of violence and terror that will force Laurie to finally confront the evil she can't control once and for all. This is the storyline, is what our movie is all about. And this movie, it's a horror film and it's also thriller. Okay, so then I think we then move into the reviews. There are lots of reviews here. Then move into the reviews. Okay, so I'll be giving a review on this. So try not to give any spoilers. As tradition, the third installment goes off on a tangent. It opens with undoubtedly the best Pumpkin title sequence and 30 minutes of Captain's team. The attraction of the final three movies to me is Jamie, and although I feel she's stretching it a little to claim in interviews, this film is all about relatable trauma. It's still a modern horror with modern annoyances. There are elements of this, and the run up is somewhat satisfying, not because it is classical Halloween as hoped, but because as producer and overseer, she may have delivered the ultimate FU to the anti-hero worshipping fanboys of this franchise in a fashion Truma dealt with of the 1978 original. Richard Combs said it was one of the cinema's most perfectly engineered device for saying boo, that's spot on, and nothing beyond the original really matters. The moment Mirror steps beyond these first 91 minutes with any attempted explanation, motivation, or widening, the illusion evaporates. Today, the suspense and the atmosphere is replaced with an apparent need for seeing people apt many times. Weirdly, this might be more to meet the limited appetite of an attention deprived modern audience rather than anything to do with the original. Okay, so let's go for another review. Most of these reviews, most of them include spoilers. So I'm sorry if I'm going to read out a review to you and the review is going to um, hold spoilers. But this movie, although this movie came out 20 although this movie came out 14th, they have actually left lots of review here stating that it was anticipated. Like a lot of people wanted to watch this movie. Like it's not all these movies that just pop out and you watch them and you not know. They're not these movies that just come out and people will know about it. They watch, the views won't be much. This movie actually a lot of people have seen it. Yeah, a lot of people, and it's one of the anticipated Halloween movies of 2022. Yeah, so this one has spoilers. So I have to admit that I really have no idea how to even begin to write this review. I'm going to do my best to try to write something coherent. Halloween Ends is one of the strangest sequel I've ever seen. I truly don't understand how this movie was green light and who thought any of this was a good idea. It's bananas. I just kind of want to say it's bad, but I can't really because it's so unbelievable. It's just insane and weird. Remember creative writing classes from 8th grade? Do they still have those? Well, they did when I was in school. I bring this up because this film's plot reminded me of some of the student stories I had in those classes. Halloween Ends is far fetched. It's so far fetched. It seems like a 13-year-old wrote it, but no, it was three grown men. This is not my review. I'm just reading out someone's review. No offense. Okay, I'm going to lay out the plot for you to see, just so you can see how absorbed this looks. Needless to say, spoilers ahead. A male babysitter accidentally knocks a bratty kid over a banister from a three-story house. The kid dies and everyone hates the babysitter. The babysitter doesn't face criminal charges and doesn't leave the city. He becomes a black sheep of the town. Why won't you leave the city? Then the city has become sort of a ghetto since the events of Halloween Kills. Michael Mirror is out there somewhere but hasn't been seen in 4 years. But for some reason, Laurie is no longer Rambo's grandma. She let all the paranoia go and live with her granddaughter. The grandfather begins to date the babysitter I mentioned before after Laurie rescued him from a gang of teenagers in the high school marching band that are picking on him. The whole town hates this guy actually, but Laurie and her granddaughter see something good in him. Wow. Note, I'm going to mention it's been about 40 minutes into the film now, and we've had zero horror whatsoever. What franchise are we watching? The granddaughter and the weird babysitter man go to the Halloween party and dance to the Kennedys, but the mother of the kid that babysitter man babysitted years ago is there and she yells at him, so he takes off. Babysitter man is confronted by the teenage marching band kids again and is thrown off a bridge where he pulls into a sewer. He finds out it was Michael Mayer who pulled him into the sewer, and he magically installs his evil presence into the babysitter man by making eye contact with him. He knocks Michael down and he can't get up, evidently because he's so old. This part is hilarious. Babysitter man leaves the sewer and accidentally a bomb. That's two accidental case for the babysitter man. And Laurie notices something different about the babysitter man, but her granddaughter thinks that it's hot and she sleeps with him. Oh wow. Babysitter becomes Michael's sidekick and they start wow, and they start taking out people together like Batman and Robin. I guess it's because Michael Mayer is 80 years old and needs help. Babysitter man wears a plastic scarecrow mask and looks ridiculous and sounds all wimpy. Laurie confronts the babysitter man because she sees Michael in his eyes. Babysitter man makes plans to run away with Laurie's granddaughter. The babysitter man decides he wants to be Michael Mayer now, so he goes to the sewer where he lives, has a wrestling match with him, and steals his marks. Babysitter man takes out his mom, a radio DJ, and then goes after Laurie. Laurie is about to take out herself, so she calls the police to tell them. This comes out of nowhere, by the way. But then, right before she's about to do it, she shoots the babysitter who was about to take her out, even though she was about to take herself out. They have a very strange and pointless conversation. Babysitter man takes himself out in the neck to make it look like Laurie did it. He hurt himself on the neck to make it look like Laurie did it. Just in time for the granddaughter to show up and get mad at Laurie and run out of there. By the way, Babysitter Man was the protagonist of this film, so he's gone now. Well, kinda. Michael Michael then shows up, finishes off the Babysitter Man, who should be gone but isn't for some reason, and take back his marks. He beats the living crap out of Laurie, but Laurie crucified him to the kitchen table before demasking him and bleeding out until he goes out. Oh yeah, the granddaughter came by because I guess now she doesn't think Laurie tried to take out her babysitter man boyfriend. The town straps Michael's body on top of a car. The entire town drives like a giant funeral to the junkyard to watch Laurie throw him into a big car grinding machine. He's turned into mush. He's done. Laurie writes a book about it. Okay, so that's basically it. But even this doesn't quite show how insane this weird film feels. It's all over the place. It's like four writers were throwing darts at plot points on a wall. The dialogue is especially weird throughout the entire film. Was this meant to be a Halloween film where the writers high on men when they wrote this? It's so bizarre. Film students need to study this film as a lesson on how to not write a sequel. It's unbelievable. I guess it's kind of inspired by Friday the 13th Part V, A New Beginning, and Jackson Goes to Hell, the final Friday. But I find just so baffling because Halloween always seems to take itself more seriously than that franchise. And here's the other thing, the movie is trying to be dead serious and dramatic. The first half of the film isn't even a horror film, but just strange up drama. There's no comic relief here at all. This is serious stuff, everyone. This film is a miracle. I cannot believe it really exists. I don't understand how millions of dollars are invested into making this film or who actually thought it was a good idea. It's incredible. I highly recommend everyone sees this film. You have to see it for yourself simply because you won't believe it's real. You won't believe everything I just said. You think I'm just blabbing, and you just need to see it for yourself. So see it for the reason and that reason only. Just don't expect it to make sense. That's it. Okay, so we are getting the plot now. We're already digging into the plot. We're getting the plot, and it's it's not giving what we want it to kind of give. It's about, I think it's, well, let's just look at another one. Let's just look at another one. And with the look of things, I was supposed to just do one review and then we'll do a little review together of the movie. But I think everyone has a lot to say about this movie. So I'm just here for it. We're just going to read them out. And no, this is another one. Warning, spoilers. To give context to how little I cared about Halloween ends, this conclusion to this now bloated, confusing, I completely forgot it was coming out this year. But when I saw Thrillers on YouTube recently, I was thinking it was coming out sometime next year. Also, I literally found out on the same day it was premiering that it was available on Peacock, and I was like, it's Halloween month. This is supposedly the final Halloween film. I have time to spare, so I'll give it a go. Maybe my low expectations will be countered with something remotely decent. And honestly, this movie might actually be worse than Halloween Kills. It's the bad looking Halloween ends tells what feels like an incredibly random story that could have been any throwaway sequel from the 80s. Inexplicably, this movie opts to focus on a completely new character, Corey, and the filmmakers chose one of the most boring and annoying horror movie protagonists that I can recall in recent memory. In the film's pre-credit scene set on Halloween night of 2019, Corey accidentally kills the kid he was babysitting for and spends the rest of the movie, set in 2022, being the town pariah. The film opens with an interesting premise that country's the town citizens are so paranoid about Michael that they implode and turn on each other, but it's never really found true with it. Instead, we get all these weird scenes of random citizens verbally attacking the main character, Corey, and the Strokes for being cause of their evils and elimination. The Strokes, I think that's Laurie. Yeah, that's Laurie. That's her first name, Strode. I hope I got that right. Strode. What's odd is that even though Laurie was barely a blimp in queues, even though she gets a lot more screen time in End, she feels like a bit player. As I said, it focuses on this new character, Corey, who ends up in a forbidden romance with Laurie's annoying granddaughter, Allison. Yeah, this the most so Corey is the babysitter. If you can recall the last review I read out, the person that dropped the review was referring to him as the babysitter, the babysitter, the babysitter. But over here, this person is calling his name, which is Corey. So he said, the most useless character in this recent trilogy of films. I couldn't stand Allison in the 2018 movie or Kills and Ends just confirms my belief that Allison was nothing more than a terrible plot device. That's rude. And Kills, she's just a random nuisance who caught up in the action while Laurie and Karen were the proactive badass who got things done. Then Laurie gets sidelined while Karen gets eliminated, while Allison gets to hang around and continue to be useless. In ends, it's time. This time it's Corey who gets to be proactive, while Allison is just his love interest. Somehow, this girl is a filler love interest after she's been in two movies while the new guy gets to be lead. Shows how uninterested she is. Also, Lindsay is in the movie for no reason whatsoever than to exist, just like she did in Kills. Okay, so this movie, sometimes people don't understand that okay it's not okay to say hurtful words to actress and actors and people. They're just acting, and second off, they have their scripts. They're not acting, they're not doing this because, oh, I want to do it. The things that they do because they're just trying to enhance everything are the little things, the tiniest things, like the scene is, or yes, the scene is sit on the chair and talk, sit in the office and receive a guest. The person, everything that person is saying is what the person was asked to say. If the person should go out of line, it's not going far, it's still going to be within that place. They won't say much. And then the only extra thing that they're going to do that they were not asked to do was just, it's just like, oh, take a sip of water, which sometimes you can't even do it depending on how tense the scene is, how tense the environment is. So yeah. So most these actors and actresses, they are not, they try their best. You can't just be saying hurtful things because sometimes they read these reviews. Most times they read these reviews, and where you, I know if they didn't act to how you wanted it to be, I think you can just, drop a review and you're just like, oh, I think you're doing okay, but you need to improve, or maybe you didn't do okay, but improve. But dropping hateful comments, that's not really, that's not it to me. Okay, so we're going to continue from where we stopped. Okay. But the worst offense in this movie is how little Michael got to do. For some reason, he's been hiding out under a bridge for the last 4 years since the tragic events of Hedge 2018. That's Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, and no one has even caught up with him yet. Then he just resurfaces with Corey. He just resurfaces when Corey gets thrown over the bridge by those four. I'm sorry, but I can't just do it. By the four students, the bullies that were bullying the babysitter guy, who is Corey, who for some reason are dressed like it's still the 1980s. So he takes Corey in as apprentice. He takes Corey in as apprentice, and the duo tag teams it for a while until Corey decides he wants to be the alpha and incapacitates Michael, stealing his marks and taking over being the main eliminator. To top of this weirdness, Allison basically stays with Corey, knowing how sick he is. He literally tells her that he eliminated a person, and her first instinct is to comfort him and go on a date. No reporting the crime to the police. She just wants to keep making out with him. The duo have all these weird scenes where Allison is all like she's drawn to him and they were meant to be together. In fact, the tone of this entire movie was strange, with a terrible supporting cast of unlikable characters. I know it's a small town, But what was with all those random moments of people running into Laurie, Corey, and Allison and pouring out judgment on them? There was that grocery store parking lot scene where the lady scolded Laurie for being the cause of Michael slashing cousin's um, her cousin's tea. How did that old lady survive kills? The 14 bullies always running into Corey and always bullying Corey. The creepy cop who took who looks twice her age hitting on Allison. The couple whose kid Corey accidentally the couple whose kid Corey babysat for the whole thing to happen just showed up randomly in the bar holding the father, delivering that weird monologue. Corey Street and holier than thou mother and his boss slash stepfather's old line. I hope you find love. So much weird dialogue in this movie. So much weird dialogue in this movie. Then there were filler characters like Allison's co-worker, the sleazy doctor, and the mouthy nurse. Were they supposed to be comic relief? The climax made no sense. Laurie shoots Corey a couple of times. He purposely shoots the wall using up her bullets, lets him grab a knife to supposedly eliminate her. But she literally said a few minutes ago, "Did you think I was going to eliminate myself?" He stabs himself and then she sad about it. He's he just tried to eliminate her, but she's sad about it. Of course, the plot devised Allison walks in and assumed Laurie did it to him, then drives away, then gets a call from the Hawkins who brought up Laurie talking about something. So she goes back. Didn't Allison realize that was hoax? She just saw Laurie standing over Corey's body. Why would Laurie try to eliminate herself when she just stopped her assassinate? Also, why would Laurie tell someone she was going to eliminate herself? Then Michael pops up. Laurie battles him, gets the upper hand, and then slows around and talk until he can grab her throat. Allison shows up. She runs her mouth unnecessarily. They don't finish him and instead wait for the police and the entire town to parade Michael's body to the junkyard where they mutilate his body and the end. There were several times where I kept looking at how much time was left in the tedious film because that's how bored and frustrated I was. The film the first 30 minutes felt like an hour. By the 50-minute mark, there was a whole hour left, and I couldn't believe it because the movie felt so slow and random with such an unimpressive cast of characters. There was actually one decent scene in the entire movie that was the extra star, and that was the scene between Laurie and Hawkins in the grocery store. It was actually well written and acted by Curtis and Patton, but then the movie followed it with randomness, just like virtually every other moment in the film. Kids and how this film ends are so bad. It makes me appreciate Halloween 2018 even more because that movie had some cohesion, tension, build up, and horror, and a smashing ending. Even though it had its share of cringe moments, even though it had its share of cringe moments, indicative, cringe moments, indicative of modern writing and filmmaking, but Kills and Ends are just cringe films from start to finish. It's hard to believe that this is how the storied franchise is actually going to end. They will probably reboot, remake it again for like the fifth time. They may have to become, they may have to, because this film is not right not to go on. Okay, so the reason why I'm not going to stop at one or two review, hear me out, is because just the first review told us about first review told us about, yeah, it gave us spoilers, told us about the movie. She kind of, I know she didn't get all the scenes, but she, yeah, but you see she skipped some things, because this second review I read out, in the first review we didn't know that Corey, who is the babysitter, we didn't know he had told Allison about him eliminating somebody, and Allison not reporting to the police. Instead, she feels bad for him and she just wants to make out with him and go on a date with him. We didn't know that, and there are lots more things that we didn't know about in the first one, but we found out in the second one. One of the reasons why I love doing this is because I don't even sometimes I don't even watch the movie, but reading the reviews out gives me everything. I picture everything, and boom, I've watched the movie. And that's why I'm doing this, because I know sometimes if it's a Netflix show, sometimes you don't get to watch it X-ray, you don't get to watch it on YouTube, you don't get to watch it X-ray except from Netflix. And if you don't have a Netflix subscription, you can easily just come on here. I know I'm not going to be giving exactly, and I'm not going to be displaying the images too, but you can just kind of browse the cast. When you browse out the cast and you know, oh, this is what this person looks like, this is what this person looks like, and not just browsing out the cast, because most times the cast, they kind of change their faces, and or they have a different setting. So the picture you're seeing of the cast with makeup on, going to the premiere looking so good, may not be how the cast was looking in the movie, and you need to see the picture of the cast in the movie, so you're able to picture everything the way it should be. So when you've done that, you can come on here, we read our reviews, and these reviews, just like these two of read, they're giving spoilers, and I'm not they're giving spoilers, and with these spoilers you're basically watching the movie. So if you've had in mind what our cast look like, and you're watching this, it's going to be so easy for you, and you're not going to have a hard time with it anymore. It's just going to go smoothly. And yeah, when eventually the movie comes out, like other sites have it where you can download, it's going to even be fun because you've kind of seen it before, so you know what to expect and all that. So with that being said, I think it's only right for us to move on to the third review. Maybe after the third and the fourth we'll stop. Yeah, maybe after the third and the fourth we'll stop. But the reason I'm doing this, like I said, the reason I'm doing more than what I actually do is because I've said the reason. Yeah. So here's another review. So let's go. This review includes spoilers too. I hope the next installment will forget about Art House, Art House Halloween, and be back to the normal timeline. Halloween was never a psychological thriller. It was just a silly slasher flick with stereotypical characters and an unbelievably resistant feeling. Just like previous installments of this trilogy, Halloween Ends takes itself too seriously without having something to back it up. Sometimes it feels like a cheap soap, other times it's like reality TV. They are borrowing life and sharing their feelings to each other and us. And when the horror kicked in, it made you laugh more than it should have, with the way it couldn't be effectively scary. It didn't mind the okay with the way it couldn't be effectively scary. I didn't mind the new approach, but it's really one. Before at the end of the day it shall feel like the same all over again. And why make the kill count so unsympathetic? What's the point in watching a slasher movie where you can't feel for characters to be eliminated? I like the finale showdown between Michael and Laurie, but they felt like two people who fight for divorce at the point, which is why the siblings' connection gave their encounters more depth and meaning. In previous No More Canon installment, I was getting sick of Laurie's victim survival rambling, or was it Jamie Lee's? But I like that end voiceover. It was in pair with the rest of the idea behind this new side of the story. But why did they have to ends like a Tarantino movie? And why the parallel between Michael and Corey, like they said in 2018? He picked her randomly, so making it look like Laurie was trying to prevent Allison her own disappointment was too random and far fetched. They were full of ideas but weren't good enough filmmakers to make it all stick. Sorry, but it's just the way I feel. I cringe every time Kel Richards appeared on screen just because she was in the first Halloween doesn't mean she had to be there too. It made Haddonfield, which is the city, makes Haddonfield feel a lot more like a hillbilly town than it appeared to be in the original movie. Maybe it's the end for this heroine, but studios I doubt studios will allow this to be the last of the series. So see you in a couple of years. But don't mind me pretending it ended with H20. Okay, that was a short review compared to the first and the second one. But I just want to do a few more before I call it a day. Um, I guess the rest of the reviews are just kind of small and short, and that's not really what I want. And I'm also looking for reviews with spoilers so that we can, get the spoilers. With spoilers are just like they're explaining the movie. It's not like it's something really bad. So it's just explaining the movie, which when I read reviews, I prefer reading the spoilers. Okay, so the next review is um so babysitter Corey in the attic. Corey gets flushed and kick the attic door open, accidentally knocking Jeremy over the Banstars to land in a bloody heap at the feast of his parents who have just arrived home. Now, this is another one. They didn't describe how the babysitter had accidentally knocked out the teenager, the toddler he was babysitting. But this one, they're giving us the Jews, and they're also telling us that he fell at his parents' feet who had just gotten home. So we didn't get this in the other reviews. See what I'm telling you? And so I'll get from the very beginning in case you didn't get that. Omniscious Brat Jeremy. This is the toddler that Corey is babysitting, his Jeremy. So he locks his babysitter Corey in the attic. Corey gets flushed and kicks the attic door open, accidentally knocking Jeremy over the banisters to land in a bloody heap at the feet of his parents who have just arrived home. So Jeremy started it all, though it doesn't justify everything. Corey is released but becomes a local para, someone for the people of Haddonfield to demonize now that Michael isn't around. Except that Michael is around. He's been living in the sewer like a ninja turtle, presumably feeding on rats and after Curry is pushed off a bridge by local bullies, he is dragged underground by Michael, but Michael doesn't take him out. Instead, they become best dudes and they are going on elimination spree, which is bad news for Laurie's granddaughter, Alison, who has just started dating Corey. Fortunately, Laurie has seen something in Corey's eyes that make her believe that he is going down a dark path. But can she convince Alison that her boyfriend is evil before it's too late? I went into Halloween Ends with the mindset, how can director David possibly make a worse movie than Halloween Kills? I've just found out. The film kicks things off with a pre-credit sequence that made me wonder whether this was going to be a comedy, and it just went worse and worse. Each time I thought the film couldn't be any more insulting to horror fans, Green does the seemingly, seemingly impossible. From the moment they showed the Meta Crush, from the moment they show the Metal Crusher in the junkyard where Corey works, it's obvious that Michael will be reduced to mincemeat at the end. Least predictable is just how little Michael actually features in the film. This is a Halloween movie, so one might reasonably expect Michael to play a big part. But the series' iconic Eliminator only makes brief appearance. The bulk of the film are revolving around Corey. This is not what fans want. But it's not just the lack of Michael that makes this film a total failure. Power outage. But that's not going to stop us. We're going to go ahead. But it's not just the lack of Michael that makes this film a total failure. There's the awful script, which offers up more grown-worthy dialogue and awful moments than its predecessor. Something, something that I didn't think was even possible. Michael and Corey becoming pals is dreadful. I have expected to see Michael riding pylon on Corey's motorcycle, but for me, the worst bits are when Corey tells Allison that he has eliminated someone and she doesn't bat an eyelid, or when Lauren decides to pull the knife out of Corey's neck after he had done it to himself. Just as Allison walks in through the door, leading the girl to believe that Fran has eliminated her boyfriend. After the inevitable and risible showdown between Lauren and Michael and the disposing of the Mannix body in that grinder, the film finally ends, leaving David to focus on destroying horror classic The Exorcist. Why does he hate horror fans so much? What have we ever done to him? Again, not me that's saying all this. Yeah, I'm the one saying it, but these are not like coming from me. I'm just reading out someone's review on this movie because that's what I'm here to do. So we can explain it and all that. This is another one. This didn't feel like a Michael movie. Michael only had like what, three elimination. Corey had 10. This was supposed to be Michael and Lauren's final showdown, and seeing as how Michael is a horror icon, his ending should have been epic, and it wasn't. Michael seemed weak, and to me, this film feels more like the birth of a new icon, the birth of Corey. It was like Michael sensed an evil under Corey's surface, and rather than eliminate him, he infected him and brought that evil to maturity. I thought the plot was initially shaping up to be a showdown between two bougie men. It sort of felt like Corey could have been developing his evil, but when it came time to for Michael to show up and attempt to take out Laurie and Allison, he would have helped destroy Michael to protect Allison. But alas, this is not what happened. Here's a few things that bothered me. Why had Michael not made more attempts on Laurie's life if he was free and living in the sewer for 4 years? The homeless man implied that Michael had been in the same spot for those years, and all the people who went to the sewer had failed to come out and was shocked when Corey emerged. See, this is another tea that they're spilling here. And how are we getting this tea from reading another review? So what's the scene here? It's about Michael being in the sewer for 4 years. That's not news at this time. That's not a new thing at this time. But the fact that this homeless man said that Michael had been there for 4 years on the same spot. I mean, nobody mentioned a homeless man in the first place. Nobody said anything about a homeless man. But yeah, this review said something about it. And he also said that everybody that went into the sewer, no one came out. So he was shocked. The homeless man was shocked when Corey emerged. When Corey left, nobody said something about this the first time. So, yes. Why was Corey able to so easily subdue Michael and steal his marks? It was almost sad to see that Michael was being manhandled. Did Corey gain Michael's supernatural strength and ability to regenerate? It seems it seemed he gained strength because he squashed the girl trapped under the truck. with a simple stomp. He was also able to jump up and attempt to keep Michael's marks after having done something to himself in the neck. Does that mean that he could survive Michael's attempt to break his neck? Is that why they left Michael's marks behind rather than get rid of it? Why couldn't they why couldn't there have finally been an explanation? Why weren't the Haddonfield residents dressed in costumes on Halloween night? Why couldn't there have finally been an explanation as to why Michael was impressive to harm and driven to eliminate Laurie? After all these years, a little explanation would have brought his story full circle. Why weren't the Haddonfield residents dressed in costume? The prosecution to the grinder was a missed opportunity to return to that classic Halloween night feel. It really should have had the people of Haddonfield dressed in costume to play that moment up to its full potential and made it a true homage to Michael's legacy. The film wasn't totally garbage, could have been fine as a stand-alone spin-off of the Halloween franchise, but it just didn't feel like the Michael's Halloween, and it didn't send him off with the epic last stand his legacy status deserved and should have had. It wouldn't surprise me if we were to see a Halloween Reborn film that brings us a potential new slasher icon to fill Michael's shoes. Just stream this on Peacock. There is area on. They decide to stick it on a streaming service and in the theater simultaneously. It's a bomb, and they can blame the low box office on also streaming at the same time. It's a mess of a movie, and little of it makes sense. I'm not going to write any spoilers, but just let me say why the acting is okay and the direction is okay. The story is completely idiotic. The ending is just confusing. It makes no sense. Does Courtney need money? Maybe she's giving her free to charity. She had to know this is the worst of all Halloween movies going back to the 70s. And it's 2 hour long, you'll be dozing off. And by the way, I bet my darling fortune that there will be another Halloween movie next year. Okay. I don't know what this movie was, but I'm still waiting on the real final movie in the trilogy to be released. This was just a bad joke, right? I kept watching, hoping that it would get better, but it just didn't. I have heard the final I've heard the final act was good, and I was lied to. Then I am not sure what message they were trying to send, but their wacky symbolism they do, but it went over my head. When it was over me, the girlfriend just felt crushed. But it was such a bad movie. 2018 was great and Kills was okay. But this makes me angry and sad at how disappointing it was. This wasn't a Halloween movie. It takes place on Halloween and Michael and Laurie in it, but that's it. Every time I look at the rating, I'm giving it, I leave the score because I feel I'm too generous. So these other two reviews, they didn't give us any spoilers. I know we are here for the spoilers because the spoilers are going to kind of make us know what's happening in the movie. So this one has spoilers. Wow, what a mess of a trilogy. I can't believe what started off as an interesting new take on a horror icon developed into such a cliché and anticlimactic conclusion. Whatever handed this reign over to David needs to be fired and blacklisted. Again, we improved that you just cannot make a mainstream film from the camera work right down to his actor's performance. And there are good actors he's working with. He just cannot break from the roots. And I believe this really harms the new trilogy. Look at the stark difference in directorial style from the first film in this trilogy compared to the other two, and that will give you a bit of a clue as to what happened with production. The producers put far too much trust in the director, and the end result was catastrophic. Anybody should have told him that most of these materials make no sense in the rest of the storyline, and that nobody cares about any of these new characters other than Michael. I have many questions for Mr. Green, such as why did he decide Laurie needed to be a narrator? That sounded similar to a Jane novel. Or why did you think giving Michael Mayer a partner, or even thinking that someone would have the same evil inside them as he does, would be a good idea? Scratch that. Why is Michael not immortal and just going complete psycho on everyone, including the guy he ends up helping? And there are two women who weigh almost about 90, soaking wet, could overpower him in such a way. Also, if he's not immortal, then how did he survive a house fire, get injured, shot, stabbed, etc., and eliminate a bunch of people all in the same night, only to go into hiding for 4 years and somehow take care of his wounds and not get eliminated? I get that is just a movie, but make it make sense. Not to mention, what is the deal with the political statements in the movie? Did the horror film about a man who wants to eliminate everyone in his path to eliminating his family really need other political statements being made throughout? I personally don't, and it's just like many other things didn't even gel well in terms of the story. I also feel like I need to address the fact that this finale seems to forget it's a horror movie until about the last 15 to 20 minutes. There are two eliminations in the first 80 minutes, and then the end was just as unimpressive with the eliminations as the first 80 minutes. I would say it was on par with the last Scream film in terms of violence, nowhere near the brutal deaths because it's fresh from last weekend. Overall, this has to be the worst in the franchise, right next to Kills. Even Halloween Resurrection was better than this. At least they knew how to stick with their own lore about Michael. This final installment seems to forget everything about him, included the lore that was being set up by this trilogy. I suppose that's something impressed by never seen a planned trilogy of a well-known franchise ditch ideas from previous films in the trilogy. They're usually more planned than this splash dash effort. I don't think the Halloween franchise will ever recover from this. I'm trying to get something that has a high review, so we won't just be reading out the bad ones, because I feel like everything I've been reading out have just been bad. But I cannot really find something more than 5 star rating out of 10. So we're just going to go with the flow till maybe we find something. Okay. I won't say anything that happened in this movie. I will just complain and start with, if you absolutely have to see this movie, watch it on a streaming device. But it's not even worth that. A 20-minute short film of just the ending would have been the way this movie would have been good. Absolutely no way. They didn't screw this up on purpose. A 4-year old with no concept of the series and possibly not even potty trained would have made a better film. That's rude. Why would they even end it with this? Honestly, an insult to fans, past writers, and everyone and things involved. I think it's time the series ends. We always love the original. Heck, I love 2018, how they started it back up with 2018 and ended it with horrible slap. The face is astonishing. Another failed sequel of a classic horror flick. There was no Michael anyone anywhere for most of the movie. That shouldn't be the final movie of a legendary horror movie character. We focused way too much on side characters, wasting so much time of the movie and taking away screen time from Michael for no reason. Laurie was once again the best in the movie. The actress played her role well, really well, and I enjoyed seeing her probably for the last time. Her granddaughter as a character was annoying, like those straight to the VHS Disney movies where the kid would turn against their parents for stupid reasons. That was her in the entire movie. It was disappointing, but I'm glad I watched because it ends a huge franchise I've been watching since middle school. It was a popcorn movie and nothing more, but still an okay popcorn movie. Firstly, for context, I watched Grim Curtain earlier this week and I genuinely can't tell which was worse, that or Halloween End. I thought the first of this trilogy was okay. It made some silly decisions, but it was what it is. I thought the second one was terrible and the focus away from Michael and towards social commentary was a bad choice than the films happens and makes the other two look like Godfather 1 and 2. What happened? The first hour is a weird, unrealistic love story, and then all of a sudden, Michael appears living in a pipe for 4 years, and his spirit possesses some guy and they become tag team champions of the serial murder division. Then the end. None of these decisions made any sense. None of the story made any sense. And the whole thing was so delicately attacked to the first two films and came before it that it may as well have been a standalone film. Take Michael out of this, and you've got a boring long story that turns into a thriller. Keep Michael in it, and you've got a boring love story that kind of turns into a Halloween film for a few minutes. This was beyond terrible. People always talk about how bad Halloween Resurrection is. It's fair to say that all good things must come to an end. They came to a point where there's just no more dividing. There's nothing to commend or even to distend. There is no point in extruding something you just cannot defend. That is unless there is money to the there's money to be made from an extent. Even though the franchise has a hideous downward trend, has gone round and round the bend, become a toxic and quite odorous, elongated bend, takes you to a place you just cannot comprehend, with almost zero reasons to promote and or to recommend, leaving one and only one conclusion that you need to apprehend is also useless as pumpkin plum and need to be commended. Halloween ends, the so-called last Halloween movie. Don't buy it one bit because I'm sure Hollywood already has plans to reboot the series in a few years. Doing the same old, we are going to ignore all the sequels and only take the first plot again. They did that with Halloween H20 and then they did it again in 2018. This is just the same old thing over and over again, guys. There is no difference. The worst thing is that this movie is 100% false advertising. It's, it is two different things. It's a weird teenage dating movie, then becomes a slasher towards the tail end. Don't believe the advertising. Michael is barely in this thing. The Halloween series is like the Nightmare on Elm Street series. The first one is a masterpiece. Then everything else is just silly, unnecessarily and lame. Halloween 3 was alright though. If you watch this, if you must watch this, watch it for free using a friend's account or whatever. Jamie Lee is great as always, but they just make her do the same thing and the same old I'm a tough SOB and I ain't scared of Michael attitude that that she has had since the 2018 movie. Her tough woman talk is just kinda old at this point. We get it. She has become Sarah from Terminator 2. The 2018 movie was a good return, but to be 100% honest, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends are just straight up cash grabs. They only spent 20 million on this, knowing they can trick fans into watching another one by putting the word ends on it. I like Halloween 2018. Didn't love it, but though it was a serviceable effort. Halloween Kills was cheesy in some ways, but the atmosphere was spooky and the kills were vicious and gore-filled enough to keep my interest. Halloween Ends is so boring and absurdly convoluted. I was a bit shocked. Just a dumb, boring, and frankly not scary whatsoever whoever wrote this should not be paid. The plot was so ass and the character's motivation was absurd. Not that I expect not that I expect at all. Not that I expected at all after watching the first two. They totally dropped the ball on the finale. I couldn't be more disappointed and will never rewatch or purchase this movie. Terrible, awful, will never recommend. Spoilers. It's hard to believe it's been 44 years since the first Halloween came out. It's amazing that the filmmakers could get so much out of a major premise. A masked man with a knife who goes around butchering people. This is the 12th Halloween, actually the 13th if you count 1982's Halloween 3 season of The Witch that didn't feature Michael. I had waited for this film for so long and was bitterly disappointed. The divine Miss James gives an awesome performance. As always, but that is about the only redeeming feature virtue of this film. I have so many problems with it. Why did they make Allison such a spoilt little brat who was so disrespectful to Laurie, her grandmother, when she was only trying to save her and help her? Why was she so out of it to fall for such an obviously disturbed person as Corey? After what she went through in the two previous films, she should have known better. I didn't like how the film focused I didn't like how the film focused so much on Corey. Michael doesn't even make an appearance until the first hour. I couldn't stand that obnoxious little kid he accidentally at the beginning, he babysitted at the beginning, or those four bullies, and that obnoxious radio shock job, and his crew of a mother whom he eliminated later on. The final fight between Laurie and Mike in the kitchen is is thrilling. You almost expect to see Michael Buffer there saying, "Alright, Laurie and Mike, let's get ready to rumble." The only quillable, I have spoiler alert, Laurie would have to be in her 60s and she puts up an awesome fight and defeats him. Why couldn't Michael's mini younger victim fight like that? Spoiler alert. Let's see Michael gets crucified on the kitchen table with his throat and wrist open. He then gets taken to a junkyard and his body put through a crushing machine after he had been unmasked and positively identified. Yes, I think this is definitely the end of Michael, and maybe now Laurie can have peace in her golden years. If anyone earned it, is her. I'm not going to tear this down like some others have because it's truth the movie is neither a 1 nor a 2 nor is it a 10 or a 9. A 5 is exactly where this film should land. What started off with a great pickup with Halloween 2018 slowly began to drill with when it moved onto cues, and here I thought we would have something to at least restore some of the awesomeness of 2018 and wash some of the stink of kills, but nope. We got a romance of a story that somehow steals the voodoo power of Charles and spins him into the Halloween universe. It is a tragedy. I mean, come on. This is the best they have done. This is the best they had to offer. Is this the best they had to offer us? It is not as bad as some have made it out to be. Definitely not as bad as Rob Zombie entries, but this definitely is a textbook way to not end a trilogy of films. I don't want to get into spoilers, but if you read this before watching, go in with low expectations and you might come out not feeling as ripped off. This film will be this will be short review as I genuinely don't want to give this film any more of my time than I already have by watching it. Writing is terrible, cringe worthy, and forgettable. The dialogue just had me saying, and people don't talk like this multiple times. I suppose the nicest thing can say for this film is that it looked good and the kills were messy. Also, a certain subplot I liked, but I will get to that later. The kills, though, they were so downright hilarious, which will lead me to say this film only escapes being a one of because of how much I was laughing. It was like a train wreck that I couldn't stop watching. Now, for the subplot, which I will not spoil, I will say that at first it had me rolling my eyes, but as the film progressed, it was getting more outlandish, and because of that, I came around to this plot line and just wanted them to go all the way with it. If they have, I would have just been in my theater seat. I would have just been down in my theater seat. Anyways, anyway, this is exactly how I anticipate anticipated Halloween ends to be, especially after Q's. The only relief I have is that it's finally over, at least until the inevitable Halloween reboot slash remake watched in theaters. So they are saying this is not a good way to end the trilogy. The first one, Halloween 2018, was so good, and that was why normally all these movies that get spoiled, they were not intended to be like that. They were just supposed to be a standalone, and then the movie did well, so they started making other ones. That's what happened here. The first one did well. They made the second one. Of course, people were going to watch, even if it was good or not. They wanted to see the square of the first one that was actually mind blowing, and they wanted to see it continue. But according to the reviews, the second one was not so good. And now Halloween End is the third one, and it's also not giving. It's also not good. Yeah. And they are saying this is, some people are glad that it has finally ended, but some are not. Some are saying they should have done better. Some are saying that's not a way to end it, and some want a redo. Why did anyone bother with this? You make the greatest slasher movie villain of all time, a man of pure evil who has been shot, stubborn, etc., only to keep coming and is now suddenly mortal, and to be met with such an unsatisfying end. Jamie Lee, next time you need a payday, this badly, try go. You need a payday. I won't donate, but it wouldn't cost me 2 hours of my life. I'm really disconcerted and demoralized. I went to the very excited theater for the grand finale of one of my favorite sagas, and especially after two films like Halloween 2018 and Kills that I love with all my heart, and instead I found myself in front of a film that destroys and makes itself mockery of one of the most important icons of the horror genre. I don't know what Green had in mind. I can't believe he made such a mess. A hideous script full of holes, things that don't make sense, things that betray everything that it was said and done in the previous that was said and done in the previous two films. Also on a conceptual level, especially the bad ending completely overturns what Laurie says in the Q's ending. Did Green forget that he had done what he had done just a year ago? Corey's character is pathetic, his storyline is pathetic, and we don't talk about the love story between him and Allison. But who comes out worst is poor Michael, here reduced to a parody of himself and just a simple extra. My God, the disappointment of 2022 is the second worst Halloween after three. I hope that at least after this abnormish abomination, people start to reevaluate the visionary masterpiece that is Rob's H2, that was a different film, but smart, elegant, and fascinating. This is it's different, but it's different because it looks like a soap opera with Michael appearing from time to time. The only positive thing, Alison has truly become a beautiful girl. Right. Well, I grew up with slasher movies like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street, but I never really got into Halloween as I just never took a liking to Michael. But yeah, I've watched all the movies over the years solely because they are slasher movies, but a fan I am not. And as I had the opportunity to watch the 2022 movie Halloween Ends, of course, I opted to sit down and watch it as well. Despite the movie of late not have not having been overly impressive, running at nearly 2 hours, writer Paul and director David managed to drop the ball entirely here with Halloween Ends and ended up delivering a movie that was really boring, slow paced, and just felt like an insulting way to end the franchise. Not that I really, not that I really am enraged, not I really am enraged or upset, but how they opted to end it. But I am sure that fans out there will not be thrilled. The storyline in Halloween Ends was too mundane and slow paced for my liking. It felt like it took director David Gordon Green forever to go nowhere, and since nothing interesting happened and the movie was just generally lacking a kill count than ends Halloween ends was a swing and a miss. Sure, it was nice to have Jamie Lee Curtis, that Laurie. It was nice to have her return to the screen as Laurie and also to see the likes of Ray Patton in the movie. But I have to say that I didn't really care much about the characters in the movie as the narrative was not as the narratives was not entertaining to me, and the character gallery was just a bit too mundane. I wasn't impressed with this movie, and I think it is actually one of the worst addiction to the Halloween franchise. My rating is 3. Defying all logic. Defying all logic. I have a soft spot for the Halloween series, perhaps because this very first Halloween was the second real horror film I ever saw and made the little kid me afraid of the dark for a good few weeks. It left a lasting impression. I saw them out of order, 4657328. I can't remember where I put my keys yesterday, but I remember the order in which I watched this Halloween series. Why this is indeed ridiculous. Part of the reason there was that part two was banned in my country and I have to jump through some loops to watch it. Back then, tracking down uncut horror movies was an art in itself. But every but enough rambling about yesterday. All I wanted to say is that I very much enjoyed the series and wanted to like this Halloween 2018 started the new series off promisingly. The first hour in particular was tense and gruesome. They managed to establish logical places for the characters to be in, and the two reporters were interesting new characters until they went and the far less interesting Strauss family become the protagonists for the remaining 40 minutes of the film. Therein lies a fundamental flaw of the Square trilogy. The straws are boring, while Jamie Lee Curtis was able to inject some life into Crazy Lady Lauren in 2018. Kevin and Allison are more or less just there without much to do. They just there's just as well could have been one character. In this movie, once again, the new character is the most interesting. Corey's story is actually engaging. Yes, the romance was poorly handled, but as a character, we feel for him, at least initially, until the stupid stuff with Michael happens. The first 30 minutes of Halloween Ends offers more character development than Halloween Kills in its entire runtime. Where this end falls into the same trap though is pretentiousness masquerading as substance. Since Kills, they are pretending that their slasher movies are some profounded they are pretending that their slasher movie are some profound musing on on the nature of evil or the trauma when really they didn't. In ends, yet again, they try to add subtext and they try to add subtext into a story that starts off as a character drama. The ending, in particular, is one of the worst instances of pretentious film school style intellectualism I've ever seen. I kept thinking of Neil. If you know who that is, you know what it means. You know, look him up. The filmmakers try to be clever and add some allegory about trauma spreading from person to person, know how trauma works, before leading into a pretentious step up for yet another sequel. Evil doesn't lie, it just changes shape. Someone in the movie theater called out, "Life finds a way," and everyone laughed. This was certainly not the filmmakers' desired reaction for their profound horror movie. Halloween ends constructs its narrative logic until it collapses under its own pretensions. The original movie worked because it's a masterclass in filmmaking, starting with starting with wide shots, giving us a feeling of the town more so than any exposition dump in the new movies. The presence of the always felt rarely seen paranoia slowly creeping up as night fell, with the camera angles getting closer, the scenery more claustrophobic and frightening, and the darkness eventually encompassing everything. The new ones are way too convoluted from a narrative and thematic standpoint for their own good. There are few things to there are few things to like here. As said, the first hour is strong, mostly carried by Campbell's acting. He carries the film, a very promising actor. The use of music is very good, and the remixed versions of the original still added tension and class. They got the hook of the max right. There are a few adequately blood cues, and the color grading and cinematography are good. I didn't mind the fact that they move away from his formula, or that Michael's role was so reduced. He's been overused more than Drax at this point. Halloween was on the right track with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. They should have continued with that kind of concept of a Halloween themed horror film every few years. Here, here's hoping the next inevitable reboot will do just that. People noted Rob Halloween for spending an hour showing you his childhood. Then Halloween Ed said, "Hold my beer." This new trilogy literally took the story of one movie and stretched it out into three. This is how you end up with pointless drama and random new characters. The people behind this should be ashamed of themselves. They were not made by true Halloween fans and were not for true made for true Halloween fans. These filmmakers had far too much freedom with a franchise with a rich history, and it shows. What a sad way to see an empty, lifeless, and meaningless end to such a character. I can't even begin to convey how instantly inept it is to see the emotional climax with booming John Carpenter music, and it's the first glimpse of an actual Halloween movie, but there is only 3 minutes of movie left. They forgot to build up the climax they wanted to move you with, yet not guide you to. The dialogue was cringe and nothing that any self respecting human would ever say out loud. There are moments when we should just be shown emphasis on something we instead we get full spoon fed awful words to make certain our dumb brains know what's going on. The characters go against their nature just to make the story move. The story that seems to have been written the day before shooting, and they forgot that the last movie of a trilogy should sum up resembling the first movie of a new trilogy. Oh, and they forgot this movie is about Michael too. I know. Easy mistake, right? My God, the fact that this exists just crushes my heart and any remaining faith in Hollywood as competent storytellers. It's like they forgot that they had the first movie and the second movie. You kind of have to follow up. You kind of have to look at what happened in the first movie and second movie and make the third movie count, make them relate. But that's not the same here. They did not make them relate. That's coming from the reviews. So, mm, just how could anyone make this movie? The only possible explanation is that the director secretly hated the series and wanted to ruin it for everyone. I don't want to spoil it for those that don't need my warning. So I'll just tell you this. This movie completely disrespects the characters, tradition, and established character behavior patterns that we've come to know and love. Also, Michael is barely even a part of the movie. After an hour in, we've only seen him once for about 15 seconds. This trilogy started awesomely but got worse as it went on. This movie is the worst of them, the worst Halloween movie ever. Full stop. I'm looking forward to a retention. Retencon. This isn't a Halloween film. There is no Michaels. There is just an apprentice, a badly cast one. Out of all possible storylines, they could they could have out of all possible storylines they could have chose, they picked this one. Michael's Jr. Does Michael have accomplice? Does he body up with people? No, he doesn't ever. I have a bad feeling about this film when I didn't see Michael for the first half hour, then nearly an hour. Then I feel like I was watching 18 movies from the 80s. A really bad one. I'm not exaggerating. It makes me feel sick how bad this film is. Really ruined the series out of this trilogy. The first one was okay, and that's pushing it. Never let Danny lose on a horror franchise again. For for a movie that promotes the final showdown between Laurie and Michael, is very head scratching that Michael doesn't make his first on screen appearance to almost 55 minutes into the film. that was a really bad sign. The movie really centers around Corey, not Michael, nor Laurie for that matter. It's about his severe struggles with reality and how he continues to unravel from a freak babysitting accident. The film doesn't do a decent job of making you root for the guy and all the people who were pricks to him, who were breaking brick to him, looks to get their looks to get their but again, way too much time was spent on Corey and not Michael or Laurie. The last scene though was a very creative way to put everybody's mind at rest that this time Michael is certainly not coming back. I would say the movie as a whole was disappointing, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't expecting it to be great before watching it. Most people, I'm sure, would agree. Thank God it's over. These last three films were absolutely terrible and should be wiped from the Halloween franchise. These make Rob Zombie look like a horror genius. Halloween Ends was laughable. First off, the entire series is based around Michael. We don't even see him until about an hour into this flaming thought. It's not the first picture. The cat is out of the bag. We want Michael. That's all we want. Then when we do finally see him, he's hiding in the sewer under a highway like a ninja turtle and preying on bombs I see. Name sauce. Next, we have this kid named Corey who beats up Michael. Yes, actually beats him up and takes his marks. Then he gets the evil inside him, which isn't new. We saw this in multiple Halloweens already. Then Corey gets eliminated because he's no Michael. He is mortal and big, feels pain. Michael is mortal too. Michael has to jump in like a sidekick to Corey and save him from Laurie. Okay, so let's get this straight. The cycle who the in, who the entire franchise is based off of and who Haddonfield is scared of plays second fiddle to some kid the audience has known for an hour. At least make it Allison or something. What were these people thinking? Is the dumbest thing they could have done. Thank God Halloween ended. Bury the franchise for another 6 to 10 years. We deserve better than that. Now remake Chunky Freddy. I'm sure they will get it right eventually. This movie was so bad, it's bad. And this is going to have to be the last review because we've done a whole lot. This is definitely going to be the last review. And it has spoilers. I have no idea what the filmmakers thought they were doing here. David and Danny and the other writers absolutely dragged the Halloween legacy through the mud. I was not a fan of Rob Halloween, but they are basically masterpiece compared to this piece. And yes, it sounds like I'm overreacting, but I'm not. The first 5 minutes, this film lets you know that it's nowhere near the feel of some of the other films. First of all, you get an opening that contains about 2 minutes of rock and roll compare this to the opening of the original Halloween, the follow up and Halloween 4, and it will just make you that much more angry. Michael is reduced to a camel and then an afterthought, and then he shows up for the final 10 minutes. They actually make someone else in the film do most of the dirty work. Alison, Laurie's granddaughter, is probably the only reason why I didn't leave the film after the first 30 minutes. She was terrific and easy on the eyes, and that is all I can say for the movie in terms of its good qualities. Its good qualities. The finale of this film is just a fist fight between Strode and Milas, and by that I was so angry, so uninvested in the film that I couldn't care less. I was actually hoping that everybody's gone just so they really couldn't make another Halloween film, at least not done by this crew. At least not done by this crew. Halloween is my favorite horror movie of all time. I love the follow up to it, and I loved part 4. This is a complete of the films I just mentioned. It's horribly written, not very well directed, and they basically eliminate any of the good stuff that they try to emulate from the other films. I don't know how John or Jamie or Jason could have read the script, approved it, saw the dailies, approved them, and then watched the final cut of the movie and thought to themselves, yes, this is awesome. This is without a doubt the worst Halloween film out of all of them. Shame. Yeah, that is it. And that will be the end of this